literature, Evan Leach talks about the Barnard Basin, and he has this belief that the Nambucca block, which contains deep water sediments that are more highly deformed, getting up into textural zone 3 for the New Zealand Chris who's here, you'll understand what they look like. He sees that Permian Basin as extending all over the eastern area east of Armidale, whereas Jonathan and myself, and I think Sol and his students have often see this Manning group as little strike slip basins that occur along the major faults, probably which were activated in the early Permian. So that's an important thing to remember in the conference when Evan Leach presents his paper talking about the Barnard Basin. You will be able to see how he's talking about these kind of rocks. And anyway, there's many complications that lie beneath these different interpretations.
Yeah, I think he thinks one big basin has been sliced up and dispersed along the fault rather than individual faults, individual basins.
That's right.
Develop.
Yeah.
But certainly, if you look at the composition of the conglomerates in the Manning group, they're in places there are locally derived. Oh, is that the lizard? Yeah. There's lots of those there. What are we looking at here? Is this serpentinite? Yeah, that's a serpentinite. Serpentinite. And it's got little magnesite veins in there. It's quite talky in places here.
What are we looking at over here?
The Manning group. That's the diamictites. In this case, very fine-grained, silicious siltstones. But if you look with your hand lens, you'll see that it's poorly sorted. There are coarse-grained fragments in it. It's very poorly sorted material.
It's coming up vertical, but it's not.
It's not a vertical fabric.
It's not exactly field fault, is it? But it's
no. Well, that's a bit of a debate whether the field fault is what the Great Serpentinite Belt is the field fault, or the field fault's a later development.
The original definition.
The field fault is later and unrelated to the Great Serpentinite.
Yeah.
Well, actually, if you go back to the original definition, I'm not sure that's. I mean, you can argue about whether they got the concept right, but the original definition actually.
Well, Benson says.
I think he had a zone, but they were all wrapped up together. And I'm not sure that I necessarily agree with it, but I think that's the way they did it at the time.
Is this a
dead ringer.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're looking at nephrite in New Zealand, this is perfect, you know. Silicious sediment, serpentinite, a reasonable metamorphic.
And nephrite is, or how does it develop?
It's a metasomatic reaction of serpentinite against a quartzo-feldspathic sediment, usually sandstone, grey wackies, and you need a fair amount of ductile shear and a reasonably high metamorphic grade, or sort of mid-greenish species.
Okay,
And then at that point, you get this very distinctive amphibole develops. Tremolite. And the tremolite forms a felted texture, which is called nephrite. So that's the definition. I came here with Robin Offler, and he showed me the ones across the way in Howard Creek and Spring Creek. And
well, I guess it does develop here. But
I just walking behind, I thought, Christ, this is exactly where you look for nephrite. In just a few centimetres usually.
I know a place where it may. I'm not familiar with nephrite itself, but I know where there's in some places there are these felsic dikes that come through. It must be Permian or something like that come through, and they've intruded into the serpentinite, and you get this really silicious contact between that and the serpentinite. I wonder if that's.
It only ever occurs. Serpentinite sandstone content.
Do you know what the mineralogy is? How much antigrite, for example?
I don't know the proportions. No.
Is it mostly lizardite or?
I think it's mostly lizardite.
Lizardite.
I say some friend of mine in the Natural History Museum in London has just made a fantastic discovery. It's the most important thing ever happened in mineralogy. He's discovered a pentameral symmetry in serpentinite. It's the first pentameral mineral. You say, how the hell can you get a pentameral mineral? These things don't fit together, you can't make a lattice pentameral. Except in a buckyball. You can do it in balls and in cylinders.
Yeah.
And discovered the lizardite mostly has a pentagonal symmetry. Is that right? Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah.
Well, they're an interesting. I mean, yeah, they're
Very complicated, and very temperature sensitive.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So these are forming diapirs, or are they important against?
Yeah, I think they're I think they're diapirs of serpentinite that have come up along. Well, they seem to come up along the contact between the Dungatti and the Gamilaroi terrain. That divides those.
Right. Do they carry bits of gabbro and?
Yeah, and that's what we'll see. That's the Wererite terrain, the ophiolite or ophiolitic material that's in amongst it.
Yeah. It's not moved.
When you say talc, you refer to the
Just the feel of it. I haven't
so
done
no
any.
talc actually in the.
No, but in other places like at Bingara, I had an honours student there this year, and she, in a petrography, found lots of talc.
Okay, in the carbonate or in the serpentinite?
In the serpentinite, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I think that's just a temperature thing. The higher temperatures, you start to get talc rather than serpentine minerals.
Yeah.
Russian gold was built.
So I haven't found talc in the Tanga.
Okay.
That's why we think it's lower temperature.
Lower yeah. Okay. Yeah.
The silica carbonate.
Yeah.
Yeah.